Midsommar is the second film written and directed by Ari Aster and follows the story of a group of college students who go on a trip to Sweden to visit the commune where their friend grew up and participate in a 9-day festival that only takes place every 90 years. I think it's natural for everyone to want to compare this to Aster's first film, Hereditary, because it did quite well for being someone's debut film. And when a director is that well received right out of the gate, everyone gets a bit nervous over whether or not their next project is going to be any good. Hereditary is a divisive film in the sense that it's kind of love it or hate it, and I'm one of the people who really loved it. I also loved Midsommar, but I can see this one being even more divisive than Hereditary. Midsommar's pacing and presentation are pretty wildly different from its predecessor, so even though there are a couple of elements of these two films that are similar, which I won't go into as to not spoil anything, I can't necessarily recommend Midsommar to someone based on whether they liked Hereditary, because the two films are just that different. As you probably already know if you've watched the trailer, this film is absolutely beautiful. The cinematography is top-notch, there are so many shots in this that genuinely take your breath away, and its color palette is really something else. It's interesting because the first part of the film has a color palette more along the lines of traditional horror. Scenes are dimly lit and void of any bright colors, but when the group of characters get to the commune in Sweden, it's as if they've arrived in Oz and the world around them is just drenched in color. This film also handles the visual representation of psychedelic drug use quite well. CGI is used in very subtle ways that allow the viewer to viscerally experience what these characters are experiencing without going too over the top, and it works perfectly. Midsommar even manages to maintain its beauty in its goriest moments. No matter how disturbingly violent this film gets, the colorful floral aesthetic is ever present, creating some pretty stunning shots, or maybe I'm just sick, I don't know. You know, when somebody gets their face smashed in, you pull a flower on it, it looks nice, all better, A+. I found the main character Danny to be very sympathetic and likable. Florence Pugh did an excellent job in this role and genuinely made Danny feel like a real person. In fact, all of the characters felt really grounded in reality, most notably in the way that they interact with one another. Since these characters are in a fish-out-of-water scenario, there are several instances of them having to meet new people, and those moments are handled in a surprisingly realistic way. Meeting someone for the first time has a certain air of awkwardness about it, regardless of how confident either party might be. People tend to stammer over their words, forget names they've just learned when too overwhelmed, and make jokes to try to break the tension when in these situations, and I was really impressed with how the film was able to portray this in a way that was so true to life. Unlike a lot of genre films in the vein of group of young people go somewhere and bad things happen, I actually cared about the conflicts going on within this group of main characters, especially the strained relationship between the main character and her boyfriend. Which is a relief considering how much time we spend with these people. The movie's 2-hour and 20-minute runtime would have been pretty unbearable had these characters' interpersonal relationships not been something you could be invested in. Something to keep in mind is that this film takes its time getting to the disturbing stuff that you might be there for if you were a fan of Hereditary. In the way that Hereditary places its drama and horror equally in the forefront, Midsommar is much more of a drama with horror elements. Its goal seems to be to make you feel discomfort and sadness rather than making you feel scared. That's not to say that it doesn't deliver on the shocking imagery, because it absolutely does, you just have to be patient. Like, halfway through the movie patient. Aster has described this film in interviews as a breakup story that reaches operatic heights. It's a film that wants you to feel some pretty intense emotions, fear being present, but the least of them, so just know that going in. If you're wanting a jump scare fest, this ain't it. In the way that Hereditary explored grief and abuse, Midsommar explores grief and empathy, and how alluring basic human kindness can be to someone who has experienced so little of it in their life. Though Aster insists that The Wicker Man was not used as an influence for Midsommar, there are a couple of similarities between the two films. The original, not the Nicolas Cage one, by the way, there's no bees in Midsommar. There is a bear though, but it doesn't punch anybody in the face.
It's a bear.
What is it? What's wrong, sister?
It's a bear.
Anyway, if you're a fan of the Christopher Lee 1973 Wicker Man, you might enjoy Midsommar. You might even like it more because the main character isn't an insufferable asshole.
What?
I really was blown away by this film, and I'm looking forward to seeing it again when I get a chance. Check this one out while it's in theaters if you can, and I give it a solid Hereditary wasn't a fluke, and Ari Aster is actually an incredibly talented filmmaker out of 10. Thanks for watching.